Okay, it is 5:30, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Are we recording? All right. So this is the work session meeting for the City Council of Minnetrista, February 21st, 2024. First order, I'll just make introductions. We have Ann Meyerhoff, Allie Paulfus, Gary Peters. Council members present are myself, Lisa Whalen, Kathleen Refkin, and McGregor. Welcome back. Peter Vickery, Claudia Lacey, and then Jasper Krugel, and David Abel, and Sarah Sansala with Kennedy and Graven. We have two items. We have three items actually on our agenda. We're going to start out with communications from our 2023 road projects, and then we're going to talk about counting write-in votes, and then we have a closed session. So communications, road projects. Should we?
You can jump to the next one.
All right, so we'll come back to that one. I'm assuming Allison is supposed to be here for that?
Yes.
Okay, so she's...
Thought it was on the regular meeting.
Okay, that's fine. We're going to go to our to the counting write-in votes for local elective office. Allie.
That's actually Ann.
I didn't
Okay.
pull it up yet. Hold on.
And we can also do our closed session before she comes too, if need be.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's on her way.
Yeah.
She forgot.
We did talk about that being under staff reports, in fairness to her, so.
Okay, so if you read in the memo, we've talked about this item back in November. Legislation had passed something that gives the cities the opportunity to pass a resolution for write-in votes not to have to be counted on election night. It's just kind of a time saver. If you want to be counted as a write-in vote, you have to just register, just like if you were running for a state or a federal this is just at the city level. They're just kind of bringing it down to the city level and giving the cities choices that they can do this. So I did look back. I mean, it's not that we get a ton of write-ins. So in 2020, it looked like there were, for the general election, there were 49 write-in votes. This would also be only for the general election. And in 22, there were 32 write-in votes that were counted. So...
And for write-in votes, if they register, then you have their official name
Correct.
as well. And then for some of the write-in votes that we've had in the past, is it hard to read their names? Or, I mean, sometimes I know people's writing.
Scribbles, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because what happens, like the county or the state sends it to the county, and then on election day, or the election morning, they will send over a list of people that have registered for like the state and the federal
Seats.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Thank you. And so it would be kind of the same thing, but they would register with me in the city, and then I would just distribute that to each precinct, and then those would be the ones that they just have to look for when they're going through the ballots.
So are the write-in votes, they're not only counted, though, on election night. Are they counted throughout the election period?
It's only the general election
Yeah.
on election day.
Oh, okay. So if you do early voting,
Oh,
are those counted?
There's no local election on those ballots.
Right.
Those are state and federal. For the absentee, for the presidential nomination primary, and then the primary election.
She's saying, like, if you do an absentee ballot in October for the general election, you
Oh,
also
yeah.
have to count those write-ins.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're counted as they come in.
Well, the way the absentee goes here is that we accept them just like if you were to do a mail envelope or
Okay.
a mailed ballot. They come in, they fill out their application.
Right.
I put them in the system. They give them their ballot, their secrecy envelope, and their other envelope, and then we keep those locked up. And then on Friday, when we started the direct balloting, this is the county comes and grabs all of those envelopes. We don't physically open those up. The county does.
Okay.
And so now that we're doing the direct balloting, they just come in and they fill out an application and they actually put it in the machine. So those ballots are automatically counted
Okay.
right away because it just goes into the system differently.
Okay.
And so the county doesn't have to put their hands on those.
Yeah. And then when you say there were 49 in the 22 election, is that total all?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So
I'm not clear, are then those 49 votes counted, or?
Those
it's just
were
not
in the
right at
past.
night?
It keeps
Yeah.
them late. No, they stayed at night, don't they?
what's that?
They finish it in the evening.
Correct.
After a long day.
Yep.
So they're not just thrown out?
Right.
So this is an example, like if you were writing Scooby-Doo, without passing this, we'd have to count the Scooby-Doos, the
Mickey Mouse.
the
Yeah.
dogs. Yeah.
Right.
This
I
would
like
allow
Scooby-Doo.
those to be tossed out, not tossed out, but not counted towards your final write-in.
Okay.
Count,
But,
unless Scooby-Doo registered.
so Scooby-Doo would have to register
Correct.
as a
Within at least
candidate,
7 days.
and then those votes for Scooby-Doo would be counted that night like everybody else, but if Scooby-Doo hadn't done that, then they'd be counted later.
They
No,
wouldn't
they
be
wouldn't be counted
counted.
at all.
They wouldn't be
That's what
counted.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to get at.
So the issue would be is if someone mounts a write-in campaign for someone without their knowing it, those votes would not be counted, even if they somehow managed to win. So if someone mounts a write-in campaign for, let's
That's what I was
say,
looking.
Jane Doe in the community to be a council member, she wins, but she didn't know she had to pre-register, those votes get thrown out.
She might not want to be a counselor.
But that's a different issue. Those votes should still be counted, and that's my issue with it.
And
If-
I'm actually with you
I-
too. I did some research behind it for this meeting, and I know that all the way down from the governor all the way down in this state that you have to do this registration, but I think that flies in the face of democracy. I don't think that that's what we should be doing. We should be counting the votes.
I think so. I know it adds more to the plate on election night, but I think they deserve to be counted. And I know it's a pain for Mickey Mouse and Scooby-Doo, but if it's a legitimate candidate that didn't know they had to do it and someone mounts a write-in campaign, then it's a one-off. It may never happen, but in the event it does, I think they should be counted.
I've forgotten about the registration. What information do we get from people when they register to run for?
Simply what their name, address, and what seat they're running for.
Yep.
So my only question is, so I think it's not as transparent if you don't require them to register, because then they're kind of trying to fly underneath the radar, so to speak. But and then I don't think it's as fair to those that have mounted a full-fledged campaign and they've registered, because now all of a sudden, so Anne is running for city council, and and let's say Anne and Kathleen are running for city council, and they don't think that there's anybody else running, and so they take it a little bit easy, and now all of a sudden somebody kind of under the radar comes in and says, well, I'm gonna run for council, I'm gonna do a write-in, and nobody knows about it except these people, and they, and so you're kind of at a disadvantage too if you register, if you're a legitimate candidate.
How long do you have to register before the actual election? Is it a month?
No, 7 days.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but I think that if you, let's take the city of Minnetrista. What do we have, like 5,200 people vote?
It's a lot.
On a good day.
No, I mean, how many registered voters do we have? Like 4,500, maybe?
The fours.
Yeah, but still, yeah.
So somebody who is formally registered in July or August, remember this, and has actually campaigned, they're going to get a certain number of votes. So if somebody, honest to God, puts together a group of people out of the city of Minnetrista that can mount a write-in campaign, more power to them.
Agreed.
You realize, Peter, that you're the one in the hot seat.
I don't know, because I'm thinking, like,
Yeah,
if you
I think
can't
about it.
get your paperwork in, then you maybe don't want to be written in.
Well, if you get voted in by write-ins, you can decline. You don't have to accept it.
Yeah, but that's also not fair to the community, because then we have to have another election.
And that's expensive.
That's the bigger issue. It's tax dollars too that you might be wasting.
How many times has this write-in candidate won?
Never.
Never.
never in Minnetrista.
In the country.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know about in the country, but
Yeah, I just think.
And
they-
mostly it is like your Chihuahua you wrote in.
yeah.
You know, and
And here's another thing I'm going to say. But we're still,
I like what you're saying, though.
we're a teeny tiny city. And maybe when we become 10 or 18,000 here, maybe I would change my mind.
You know how
But
many
right
we
now,
are
we're not.
currently?
I hope not.
We're like 9,300 right now.
Yeah.
So that 10,000
Yeah, we're
isn't
not
too
ready
far
yet.
out.
Half those people
Well,
can't
that's
vote.
what their children.
Yeah, so they can't vote.
So I say leave it the way it is until another election.
Well, let's see what happens on this election, see how many dog votes we get.
Yeah.
I don't foresee it changing. I mean, it's been like this for over 60 years, and it's
So you said 49 in one election, you said 32 in another. That just, and what do you have to do for each one of those?
We have to write them down and we have to submit them.
And do you get 32 different ones?
Sometimes, I mean, I don't know. This is the past. I wasn't at those elections, so.
And all you're doing though is writing down and submitting.
Well, we have to go through every single ballot.
Okay, but you don't have to vet them or anything.
No.
I say leave it alone. That's my vote. You guys do what you want to do, but that's I'm.
the only thing that. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Well, I actually think there's probably more risk in a small community than in a large community.
Yeah.
Because you have the, numbers and kind of dilute things. So,
Right.
what kind of enforcement mechanism would we have if we find, standing waiting for your coffee at Bacatoons and you find out that somebody's running a stealth campaign? Is there anything the city can do to say, hey, you've got to register? Or is there any penalty for not registering?
Under the current or city ordinance, there's nothing. So there's nothing that they can do. There's nothing that they should do. There's nothing that the city or anybody else can do. But if you make it mandatory that they have to register at least 7 days prior to the general election, then if you knew somebody was running this stealth campaign, you could say to them, hey, you do know you have to register. And most likely, and they're going to know that, it's
Okay, and I'm going to tell you that having done this and having literally knocked on just about every single door in the city of Minnetrista, starting in the beginning of June, I'm going to tell you that running a stealth campaign is a joke. There's no way in hell somebody could run a stealth campaign and win.
But then, and that flies contrary to what you're saying.
They should still get
Because-
the chance to do it.
That's
If
right.
they want to do it, they should still get the chance.
But how is that transparency? I'm looking at transparency. That's what I'm more concerned about is transparency. How is that transparent?
You mean like how can the constituents look that person up?
Right. Or how can everybody in the community know that this individual is running?
But it's legal in the first place. If it wasn't legal in the first place, and if you're doing something illegal, I might go down the path. But this is legal in the first place.
Yeah, you get to write in who you want. We're just deciding whether or not we want to count them.
Right.
I think they deserve to be counted.
I think so too.
I think there's no harm in not doing this. It's just administratively easier.
I get that. but
So that's
that-
where staff is coming from. We don't really care either way.
I hear you.
It's just
I hear you,
easier.
but I'm going to make a nasty comment. And the nasty comment is, if you don't want to do the job, then don't do it.
Hey, you talk to the
But as far as I'm concerned, from a government standpoint and what we represent for the community, we should allow it to happen until, I don't know, something else happens.
Yeah, I think I'd agree.
Okay, if that's what the council wants, that's what we'll do. I just think it's more transparent if you have to register. That's all. And I look at it from a standpoint of what people will do is there's never been in 25, 30 years in Minnetrista, there's never been a serious write-in campaign. And generally what people will do is they'll put a name down because maybe they don't like let's just say there's a mayoral whatever race and they don't like either candidate. So they put somebody else's name down.
But that's their right to do it.
That's why they're
But what
allowed
I'm
to
saying
do
is,
that.
and they can still do that. They can still do that, but it's just not going to be counted. But it doesn't count anyway because
Well, it counts. That person gets a vote.
But
If you
that
have to
person
count
got
them,
to do what they wanted to do.
and it was counted. I think should
I mean,
count.
like I said, if that's what the majority of the council wants, that's fine. It doesn't,
Yeah, bring it up again in 2028, but right now, I say it stays.
Well, why I kind of rethought this is if the 7-day, it seems like you could get your paperwork in, but let's say you don't, and one of the council members running something egregious comes up, that they've done and is exposed, people could go, we need another council member. Maybe the town does rally and pick another person. So
Okay.
I think
sure.
I think that's a good thing that they can be counted and maybe win a spot.
I spent a fair number of time thinking
Thank you.
All right.
about this. You did.
So,
All right, we'll leave it as it is.
all right. So we're going to leave it as is, and we're going to, you know what we're going to do? We're going to do our closed session. Can we do that?
Yep, I'll cut the audio.
Okay, and can you close the door, and if Allison should arrive, somebody's going to have to ask her to wait? Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay.
And you'll need a motion to go into closed session, and
Okay.
whoever makes the motion should read what's on the agenda.
Okay.
I will make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3B to discuss matters protected by the attorney-client privilege relating to commencing a legal action related to business operations on the property located at 1195 and 1205 Sunnyfield Road, Minnetrista.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Made that second. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. We are now in closed session. Sarah, do you need roll call or anything?
No, just verifying that we're not recording.
Okay.
Closed sessions, attorney-client privilege are not
Even if I
recorded.
cut it, you didn't know where
It should not be recorded.
It should not be
Yeah,
recorded.
I'll go turn it off.
So, all right, we are back in session, and our last item on our work session is the 2023 road projects.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I would just like to take an opportunity, a few minutes of your time, to just go over some of the numbers that were generated from our public engagement team for the 3 street projects that happened last year. Due to the magnitude of projects that the council authorized last year, we brought on public engagement to be that first point of contact for residents. And it worked fairly well. I'd like to share that between the email account and the hotline, there were 406 inquiries. So that included back and forth. So if somebody had a question, response, that is included in the total.
Were there a lot from the same core group of people?
There were certainly a few individuals that we had more contact with than others. That's a good question. But it was, that was across all 3 projects. Most of the emails, most of the inquiries came through email, 272 versus phone calls, which were 134. The reconstruction project, of course, generated the most questions given the magnitude of the project. That's not very surprising. That was 250 inquiries, and then the mill and overlay project was 140. Again, not surprising given the number of properties adjacent to that project, and then the reclamation project constituted the remaining 16.
So the reclamation was only 16 inquiries? Wow, that means that project went really well and really fast.
It did.
Yeah.
We were very happy. We got good feedback from residents, along the corridor there with regards to the contractor. I think I can speak for Public Works Director Peters when to say that the contractor was very good to work with, very receptive when an issue came up, which in that project area was not very often. So we had 71 property owners in the overlay area that we were in contact with, 53 in the reconstruction area, which is a pretty healthy percentage because I think we had 80-some residents in that project area, so we were in contact with a lot of those folks in the reconstruction area. Again, not surprising given the magnitude of that project and the impact that it had on those residents. And then there were 14 points of contact, 14 residents in the reclamation area that were contacted. Most of the inquiries were related to restoration requests, like irrigation systems and landscaping. Some of them were general information like schedule, construction activities, and design details. So I just wanted to give council a flavor of what we were hearing, the inquiries we were getting. Now, before we brought on the public engagement team, certainly the residents had my contact information, Mr. Peters' contact information. So those numbers don't include the phone calls, emails that both Gary and I received throughout the project. So just wanted to share that with council. We do plan to bring public engagement on with projects in the future. And when we look at that, it's a more streamlined process. We feel that it's a better point of contact with residents. They have one email address that's consistent no matter what year the project is being held, one hotline phone number, again, it's consistent throughout the years. And the idea is to have that, 90% of those questions can be answered by that individual that's monitoring either the phone or the email address at that time. From a cost standpoint, these are questions that come up no matter what, whether we have a dedicated public engagement person. And typically, those calls would have gone to either me or the construction inspector. So we actually have somebody at a lower billable rate that would be monitoring that. So I think that it's a win-win situation for the city, and then also for both Gary and myself as well, to get those people's questions answered quickly. Like I said, about 90% of them can be answered by that individual.
So besides phone calls and emails, what other public engagement things did you do in order to inform people of what's going on and schedules and so on?
Thank you. So at the outset of the projects, we send out a newsletter, which I think is a nice, for those of us that still like that physical piece of paper to put on the fridge or what have you. I think that would be something we would continue. But we are actually, Gary and I just went and reviewed some improvements to the web page as far as providing information, the hot items, the irrigation system, the landscaping, those sorts of questions that came up frequently, to have what we hope to be a more user-friendly opportunity on the web page, and they can maybe navigate and find the question answered on the web page. So those are two things that we anticipate looking at in the future. And then certainly if we typically have those neighborhood meetings at the outset of the project, and they did prepare some of those materials for last year's project, so we would include them in the future too, to make sure that are the boards set up in a way that residents can see the information that they would like to see. They always have really good ideas on how do we engage people to get feedback too. So we would ask for their input on that as well.
So the website, is it the city's website and then they click, or is it a separate website?
I believe how we had it set up last year was they were able to access the web page through the city's website, but WSB was hosting that so that we could update it as necessary without utilizing city staff time to make those updates.
Okay. So if somebody wanted information, they could go to the city's website, and then there's a link or whatever, and then they could click on that.
Correct.
Okay.
And
okay.
I think that went fairly well. I didn't hear any negative feedback from that respect.
No, and it was right on the city project.
Okay.
And then it linked to WSB.
Because most people wouldn't know to go to WSB website, so that's why I was wondering if it was a. Okay, good. Yeah. I think engagement, communication is really essential. So that's great. Good.
Thank you for the questions.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Anything else?
I was just going to add, we did have multiple on-site meetings, staff-wise, too,
Yes.
for some neighborhood. That was one of the engagement things that I think was good. I think people are kind of heated, and I think every one of those meetings, everybody ended up being pretty happy, which was good, because those things can ebb and flow, and we don't want those to get out of hand, and
Right.
so it's good to meet, and I appreciate Allison and Gary being willing to do that and work with those residents. So, and I know a lot of additional work kind of came from those things, additional trees cut, grading,
Yeah.
things like that. But at the end of the day, you only have one shot to get those things figured out. So it's good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, just real quick, time frame wise to finish up the Morning View, East View project, kind of with everything, what are you thinking it'll be? I know it depends on weather. But
Yeah, it certainly depends on weather is going to be the indicator on when they can get out there. The remaining items are to get the replacement trees in place, and then just do another walk through the project area to see how things held up through the winter. Sometimes you'll see settlements in the boulevard area, so to come in and clean things up like that. Any other restoration efforts that did not take. Because we were late in the season getting those areas restored, we would come back and take a look at those things. We did get a good look through the corridor before the snow, before snowfall.
What snowfall? No, I'm sorry.
Good point. Before, I'll rephrase that. We went through the corridor after the contractor had left the site, so that we have documentation on the condition of the boulevard once they were gone. Because what happens sometimes is people drive off the road and there are tire tracks in the newly placed sod or seed. And they call and say, you need to come fix this. And so we have documentation of what it was like when the contractor left, not to be adversarial, but to have those conversations with residents and make sure that we're using taxpayer dollars appropriately.
Good.
Well,
All
I
right.
think, again, congratulations to Gary and to you, because we took kind of the most adversarial group and received a gleaming letter.
When no names are mentioned.
No names. I that's a wonderful feeling when we can make a constituent really happy, and enough so that they would write such a lovely letter.
Yep. Okay.
Well done. Thank you.
So, and the next final question: do we know how close we are going to be to budget? Are we going to be under, over? Do you know any idea?
The last I checked for construction, I believe we were under budget, and we are certainly under budget on the engineering costs.
Okay. All right. Because that's going to kind of enter into a discussion we're going to have at our regular meeting. So just so you know. Okay.
More to come.
All right. Other than that, any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you and good job, both Gary and you and your team. Really appreciate it. It was a big project. So great job. Thank you. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Refkin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned until 7 o'clock. You have half hour to eat.